Welcome back to another episode of Bethel Park Historical Society Presents. My name is Bill Haberther. I'm the secretary on the board of directors. And it's been an amazing journey. October actually is the 6th anniversary of the renovations to the 1905-1917 schoolhouse. Way back in October of 2016, we sort of had a lofty goal of let's try and raise $1 million to renovate this landmark building. And I'm proud to say 6 years later, we've achieved that goal and actually exceeded it. Right now, we're at $1.2 million, and all of those donations from various organizations, from grants, from residents, from local businesses, have gone back 100% into the building. Today, we're going to take a tour of all the achievements that we've been able to accomplish, and we're going to intersperse what we're talking about with photographs from the building back in 2016 when we took over the building and started this lofty ambition. So welcome. If you remember, our mission statement was four-pronged: to renovate the 1905-1917 schoolhouse, to create a cultural center for the community, to create a repository for the history of our community, and also to establish a venue for corporate and private events. And again, we've been able to achieve all of those goals with the support of our community. So we greatly appreciate everyone's help over the past 6 years, and we look forward to seeing what the next 6 years will bring to the schoolhouse. So what an incredible transition. It's amazing what 6 years will do and $1.2 million. I mean, when you look at the outside of this building and you go back to that photograph 6 years ago, 107 windows have been replaced, a new roof, the cupola restored, the bell returned back to where it needs to be, a new driveway in the governor's driveway, the engraved bricks, new stairs, new handrail, new exterior doors, new gutters and downspouts. I mean, the list just goes on. And it's just absolutely incredible, not only from state funding, but from the generosity of residents and local businesses, and a dedication of a team to just come in and do volunteer work to help get this building on firm footing. So here we are standing on the original 1905 front of the building on Park Avenue. Over my shoulder, one of the things we're proud of getting and adding to our collection was the St. Valentine's flagpole, which was dedicated in 1961 and was donated to St. Valentine's School by the Veterans of Foreign Wars. Last Veterans Day, it came back. We had raised $13,000 to bring that flagpole back here, have it refurbished, and now part of our collection, but more importantly, to be able to fly an American flag and a flag as a tribute to the prisoners of war, the POWs. As you can see over my shoulder, it's October. It must be Halloween. Matt and Julie of Reginald's Coffee Shop love Halloween, and every year they decorate with skeletons. This year they're in a sack race. The big guy is the referee. He's in charge of who wins the race. And actually, the sacks that they're using are the coffee bean bags that Matt and Julie have for their freshly roasted coffee. So over the course of 6 years, we've held many fundraisers. One of the things that we did was the Park Avenue Beautification Project. Back in the 40s, Park Avenue was lined with beautiful trees. Over the years, those trees died and were removed. So one of the things that we wanted to do was to reinstall trees, use that as a fundraiser, and have a plaque dedicated to a loved one, a family member, a business. So we've sold about 18 trees over the past couple of years, and Park Avenue, in a couple more weeks, these red maple glory trees will be red and beautiful, and it's just another way to beautify not only the neighborhood, but to earn some money for the Historical Society and to honor your loved one, your family, or your business. So as you know, for the past 6 years, we have been diligently working on the renovations on Tuesdays and Thursday evenings. And literally not a week goes by that someone doesn't stop in to take a tour or to donate items. We were fortunate that a couple of years ago, Rich Painter, a local Bethel Park resident and a bomb squad detective, for the Allegheny County, stopped in and was mesmerized with the fact that Bethel is the home of the first use of a landmine. So he created a display for us by taking a vintage 1927 barrel and labeled it as TNT, because back in March of 1927, the Flathead Gang sold 10 of those 50-pound barrels from the Molinar mine, and on Friday, they lay in wait near Brightwood Road and blew up the Brinks Armor truck that was carrying the payroll of $104,000 to the Coverdale mine. So we just got a recent edition, Gangs and Outlaws of Western Pennsylvania, a wonderful book that details about all the gangs in our area, one of which is the Flathead Gang. So a couple of weeks ago, Rich came back in and he said, I had these newspapers from 1927 and I wanted to donate them to add them to the Flathead Gang collection. So these newspapers date from March of 1927, and Little Bethel, as it was back then, actually made the front page of the World in New York, the New York Times, and the Chicago Daily Tribune. In addition, Bob Clark, who's a fireman across the street at Bethel Park Volunteer Fire Company, came in and showed us a pistol that belonged to his grandfather, who was a policeman in Pittsburgh. And family legend dictated that the pistol was actually taken from the Flathead Gang. That's the story his grandmother had told after his grandfather had passed away. And Bob looked at our collection and our exhibit and said, I want to donate this pistol to the Bethel Park Historical Society. So we are quite proud to have that. We have it in a case which will be mounted on the wall and locked. And it's just another wonderful addition to our ever-growing collection. I'm currently standing in our boardroom, and as you can see from the still photograph what it looked like 6 years ago, it had a suspended ceiling, and actually when we took that ceiling down, it was suspended by cables, and the cables were actually eating into the wood. So fortunately, we had taken that down before it had fallen itself. A lot of work has gone into this room. We took up the carpeting, the tile flooring to expose beautiful 1917 floorboards. All this room is original. The original chalkboards, beadboards, the borders above the chalkboards. And so one of the things, as I mentioned earlier, that we're constantly getting donations. We now rent this out as a corporate and private venue, and I'm happy to say that a couple of weeks ago, we had the class of 1967 had their 55th class reunion. Then we had the class of 1970 who had their class reunion, and one of the members donated a 1990s band uniform, which is right next to me. We put on a mannequin. This past weekend, we had the class of 1972, hosted them for a private tour and talk about what's going on at this schoolhouse, and one of the classmates donated his 1971 letter sweater with the WIPIO letter for track. So these all add to our collection, and we greatly appreciate those types of donations to add to our ever-expanding collection. Okay, so we're standing in the newly renovated library of the Historical Society. Here we house Bethel memorabilia and also our collection of yearbooks going back to 1931 when the first Beacon was printed. We also have baseball, softball memorabilia, Blackhawk imagery, majorette, Bethette, cheerleader uniforms, anything and everything that just sort of relates to the history of our community. People can come in, browse through the yearbooks, find their mother, their father, their grandparents. Not a week goes by where people aren't coming in to do family research and checking out the old yearbooks. Behind me is the old principal's office, which we converted into our military museum to honor our local veterans. What started off as a simple idea of collecting memorabilia quickly blossomed into an amazing collection. And we still keep getting things. I've mentioned Rich Painter before, but literally a couple of weeks ago when he came in and donated the Flathead Gang memorabilia, he also brought in an M1 Garand World War II rifle. A year or so ago, he walked into the military museum and said, "This is a wonderful collection, and I notice you have 3 Japanese rifles from World War II, but you don't have any American rifles." So he went out, sourced one, purchased it and donated it to our collection, which is a wonderful thing, and we greatly appreciate that. So again, if you have any military items that you don't know what to do with, you want to honor your grandfather, your grandmother, your dad, anyone in your family, please drop it off at the Historical Society. We're here on Tuesdays and Thursday evenings from 5:30 to 8 o'clock, and we'll greatly display and honor those memories of your loved ones.
Nice, Bill.
This is another room in which we're quite proud of the transformation. A couple of years ago, it was an artist's studio. The windows were covered with curtains. It was filled with art, which was a good thing. However, it didn't harken back to the 1905 floor plan. So for the grace of the Daughters of the American Revolution, the local chapter, the Bethel Fife and Drum, they donated $10,000 to have this room named in their honor. They actually won not only, they came in second in Pennsylvania, second in the Eastern Seaboard, but they came in first nationwide for a project that restored history. So we're quite proud of the tie that we have between the local DAR chapter and the Bethel Park Historical Society. As you can see, this is the original 1905 room. It has smaller flooring, 1-inch maple. The rest of the building is 2.5-inch yellow pine. The beautiful wooden beam that one of our members spent months chipping away at layers and layers of paint. As I mentioned, all of our funding also came about by utilizing naming rights to each of the classrooms. So we had several local families and businesses participate, so those rooms are named in their honor, and we greatly appreciate their financial support. So as you can imagine, this was a daunting task 6 years ago, and we were completely overwhelmed. So we decided just to focus on one room at a time, thereby once we finished that room, we could see what the building looked like and use that to sort of propagate the other rooms and to get other people interested in the building. You know, it's always easier once the main renovations are done to come back and do fine detailing, one of which is this flag holder that's above my shoulder. It had layers and layers of paint on it, and when we chipped off the paint, the detailing on that is quite remarkable because it's actually a star. In addition, one of our members, Skip Hornack, decided to take all the metal grates that used to be for the original air conditioning, which was AKA swamp cooler in the basement, and the coal furnace vents, and strip them of layers of paint, and to take them back to down to the metal, paint them black, and do a little gold highlighting, which is another attention to detail. Also, all of the doors need to be refinished. We're currently working on that project, but Scott Rosenberger took 19 transoms home. That was his homework assignment over the past several months, and he literally stripped off all the paint, stained them, polyurethane them, made them operational, and they just look amazing. 6 years ago, when we took over this building, this room was still occupied by a tenant. When that tenant left, we came in here and there was beadboard on the walls, there was carpeting, there was tile, just a suspended ceiling. We literally just gutted the entire room. Unfortunately, none of the original detailing, such as the chalkboard or the beadboard, were still survived. So we worked with what we could. We brought in a wonderful plaster to skim coat the walls. We painted it, and actually the closet door behind me was covered over. So when we took down the wall, we realized that there actually was a closet behind there. We sourced this door down in the basement from our collection of, I don't know where these doors go, but let's save them until we find a spot collection. And one of our members, Scott Rosenberger, took it home and restored it to what it is, this beautifully stained door. In addition, I had mentioned the transoms earlier. You can see 3 of those transoms in this room, so we're greatly appreciative of Scott and all of its hard work. And this room is dedicated to the Lime Pencil Hoff family. Betty Millar wrote a $10,000 check. Several years ago, David Minch, who was the principal at that point in time of Independence Middle School, he had the 7th and 8th graders make naming rights plaques for us. He subsequently was promoted on to a position in the high school, so we had to find someone else to make those plaques. And fortunately, a fellow by the name of Kurt Holliday stepped up to the plate, and he made the new naming right plaques for us. So thank you very much, Kurt, for stepping in and donating your time and efforts to doing that for us. So as you know, the building is called the Schoolhouse Arts and History Center, home of the Bethel Park Historical Society. Another way in which we make money is we lease out some of the spaces to tenants. And we're very fortunate to have several tenants in the building, some of whom have been in here for decades. And when I say decades, I'm talking about there's John Del Monte, who's going to be 98 next week, so a happy birthday to you, John. And Jean Benson, who's a toll painter and still teaching classes here. We're in the co-op room, which is rented out by South Arts Pittsburgh. She just turned 104 last week and still going strong, so happy belated birthday to you, Jean. So in the lobby, we have informational sheets on how to join South Arts. They do painting classes a couple of times a week. Wednesday evenings, they have live models. They're currently doing a show at the Galleria, so please stop by and support your local artists. In addition, a couple of years ago, Janet Furtney came in. She's a ballet teacher. She and her husband Steve renovated one of the lower classrooms in the basement, turned it into a beautiful dance studio. She teaches ballet, tap, jazz, if you want to take private lessons. So again, it's called Improvement Through Movement. So please stop in and see her and join. Get some exercise and have a fun time. Also, as I mentioned, John Del Monte, he has a studio. He's had one here for decades. He's on our second floor. Another tenant of ours is Reginald's Coffee. Matt and Julie came in a couple of years ago and said, hey, we'd like to open up a coffee shop. Could we rent out one of the classrooms? You know, it's been a thriving business. They brought so many people into the building over the past several years. They actually were able to succeed with their business during the pandemic. So come in and get a freshly roasted cup of coffee, a tea, little baked goods. And they also have merchandise, one of which is a sweatshirt or a Reggie's ball cap. So please come in, patronize our local tenants. Not only are you supporting local businesses, but in the end, you're also supporting the Bethel Park Historical Society. We're standing in what we call our Policemen's and our Firemen's Museum. Eventually, this collection will migrate upstairs when we clean out one of the classrooms to better display our collection. What's interesting, you never know where or how you're going to get items in our collection. And a couple of months ago, a woman walked into the California Highway Patrol office out in California, and she said that she has her step-grandfather's police badge from Bethel Township and his holsters, and did the police officers want them? They accepted them. They called our local police department, and Chief Tim O'Connor actually came to the Historical Society at one of our meetings and donated those items to our collection. And they're actually of George Kersher. He and Officer Shimolinsky were shot. Officer Shimolinsky was fatally wounded. Officer Kersher died from the result of his wounds about 4 years later. But they were responding to a call of a burglary at a home on Broughton Road. And the gentleman who made the call said, be careful, because he saw that one of the guys had a gun. Long story short, they searched the guy not too carefully. Unfortunately, he had another gun in his pants. He wounded both officers. But it's just amazing how something can travel all the way out to California, to Canada, and then migrate back to Bethel Park and become part of our collection. One of our most recent renovations is restoring the 1917 grand staircase in the main lobby on the first floor. In 1976, and we know it was 1976 because when we tore down the wall, there was a newspaper crumbled up in the wall. They had encapsulated the first floor so no one would use either the basement or the second floor. Remember, it was the energy crisis. It has always been our goal to tear down the wall and the double set of doors that allowed access up to the second floor. But we had to wait until we got the HVAC system. Fortunately, we had gotten a grant and that had been installed. So now we have heating and air conditioning in both the second and first floor. So it was really a lot of fun the night that we started to tear down the wall. And it's just incredible what has been the transformation that has occurred. There was also asphalt and metal risers on the stair treads And so we decided to remove those. Unfortunately, the original wood was splintered. There were divots from years and years of students walking up and down the steps. So rather than stripping and sanding the stairs, we decided to go ahead and purchase new flooring and red oak, and do the floor on the mezzanine level and also new stair treads. So we're then in the process of renovating the staircase. Once that's all finished, they'll be stained a nice, rich, dark color, and then we'll rebuild the banisters on both sides of the staircase. So here we are standing on the mezzanine that connects the first floor to the second floor. As you can see, it's still very much a construction site. We've been working on Tuesdays and Thursday evenings from 5:30 to 8 o'clock. If anybody wants to stop in, wear dirty clothes. You never know what kind of project we're involved with. But right now we're laying beautiful red oak flooring on the mezzanine level, and we're also putting up oak risers and oak treads. And within 2 weeks or so, this will be beautifully restored. So once we finish this project, this staircase will be the showpiece of the building. So we're now upstairs on the second floor in the beautifully renovated auditorium of the 1905 part of the building. Through the generosity of the Bethel Park Community Foundation, they wrote a check for basically 2 rooms, so $20,000. So this room is named in their honor. In addition, Tav Church came to us a couple of years ago and said they wanted to do a Bible study in the school. And back then, this room, literally, it was down to the studs. There was no ceiling, no walls. But this group of people came in. They just relished in the fact that they had a place in which to meet, and they stuck with us. Over the years, as this room has been redone, they very generously donated $6,000 worth of chairs. There are 100 chairs in this auditorium and also a flat screen TV. So we really do depend on the generosity, not only of our tenants, but everyone else. Over the years, we've done many incredible fundraising events, and I just want to highlight a few. There's been the window campaign, there's been the governor's driveway, the room naming rights, the exterior doors. We've Ghosts the Nat continue to do paranormal investigation in the building, and that organization has over 40,000 Facebook followers, and every time there's an event here, and we've held 6, it has sold out, and we get a proceeds of the tickets. The Park Avenue Beautification Project, our Breakfast with Santa that's coming up on December 3rd, our flag flocking fundraiser for Memorial Day to honor the veterans. Ring the Bell, when we raise money to restore the bell in the cupola. Raise the flag for the flagpole outside from St. Valentine's Church. A garbage can fundraiser where a local artist painted some of the totes, and we raffled those off. The veterans ornaments, where we had Christmas ornaments where you could honor your veteran with their photograph in their uniform and their military branch on the back of the ornament. Shamrock the Schoolhouse, way back when, if you remember, we sold shamrocks with your name, pasted it on the windows. At that point in time, the windows hadn't even been replaced. In one of our major fundraising events during the course of the year is the Fantastic Four golf outing, which we just held in September. Proceeds go to the Bethel Park Public Library, the Bethel Park Community Foundation, Bethel Park Education Foundation, and also the Bethel Park Historical Society. And I can say we had over 100 golfers. We raised $8,000 for each of those organizations. It was well attended. And it's one of those events where you just make contact with people in your community. Last year I met Dr. Walsh, who was the new superintendent of the school. During the course of the year, he actually asked if he could bring his principals and assistant principals here over the summer for a retreat. And it was just a wonderful way of getting to meet with them, getting them inside the building, see what we have available, and actually trying to get them to include us in their curriculum with some historical tours and insights into the history of our community. Upcoming, we have another paranormal event on October 22nd. Tickets are very limited. There actually may be one on October 21st. So check out our Facebook page at Bethel Park Historical Society, or you could always email us at historicalsocietybp@gmail.com. Don't forget Bethel's Bounty, which is a wonderful community event held at the Crowne Plaza Hotel, where you can come in and sample all the local restaurants and get a chance to meet your neighbors. It's another event which sells out. Breakfast with Santa for us this year is going to be December 3rd. Again, tickets go very quickly. You can meet Santa and Mrs. Claus. We always do a wonderful train display in one of the other auditoriums. So come and have breakfast. Tell Santa what you want on your wish list. And one of the most rewarding fundraisers that we did last year, that we started and we're doing again this year, is Wreaths Across America. And it's so important for us to honor our local veterans, all the sacrifices that they made to serve their country. Last year, we partnered with Wreaths Across America in Bethel Cemetery. There are 545 veterans in the cemetery. We were able to raise enough money to purchase a wreath for each of the veterans. This year, because that was so successful, we've also included the Peters Creek Cemetery, where there are a couple hundred other veterans. So our goal this year is lofty, to sell 800 wreaths. We have forms in our lobby downstairs. Please make sure you use a form that has our special code on it, because the Historical Society receives $5 of the $15 for each wreath purchase. So, you know, it's not about making money. It's about honoring the veterans, but the bonus for us is that we do receive some financial support through this fundraiser. So please honor the veterans this Christmas season. There will be a ceremony at Bethel Cemetery on December 17th. We're always looking for volunteers to help place the wreaths, and also volunteers in about the end of February to gather up all the wreaths that have been on the graves. So we're up in the upper hallway on the second floor, and it's an incredible transformation. If you look at the before picture, there was a drop ceiling. The walls were just painted a horrible color. The doorway behind us had air coming through it. So we removed the drop ceiling, painted, plastered, and replaced the exterior door with a beautiful door. This year, we were fortunate in getting yet another grant from the Gaming and Economic Development Foundation. That's for $100,000, and that actually will allow us to tear down the fire escape over my shoulder, to have it replicated and reinstalled. So it's just another case in point where we're just continually working through the building, relying on the generosity of fundraising and donations and state grants to maintain and renovate this 1905-1917 Pittsburgh History and Landmarks Foundation acknowledged building. So we're standing in what we call the smaller auditorium on the second floor. Actually, where I'm standing years ago, there was a wall here. At some point in time, prior tenants tore this wall down. We were going to restore it, but we decided that we liked another large space, so we didn't put the wall up. This room went through a lot of renovations. The drop ceiling here, when we took that down, the fluorescent lights were actually attached to one another by extension cords. So it's amazing that this building survived, that there wasn't a fire. We're fortunate in that Mark Edelman of EPM Architecture did a walkthrough 6 years ago and said, I have good news and bad news. The good news is the building is structurally sound. The bad news is it'll take about $1 million to renovate it. He was very spot on. As I said, we raised $1.2 million, but at the end of the day, what we've been able to achieve has been incredible. So these chairs in here were in the building. The stadium-style seating, if you remember, were from the Coverdale Mission, which was a satellite church for the coal miners in Coverdale from the Bethel Presbyterian Church. Coming up, as I mentioned earlier, we're having breakfast with Santa. This room we utilize for our train display. There will be 3 or 4 platforms with 3 or 4 different scale trains and a village that the kids can enjoy. So this December, come in and check it out. But before that, on November 12th, we're actually holding another flea market. If you remember, in February of 2020, right before the pandemic, we had over 1,000 people in the building purchasing items in our flea market. So we're finally getting to the point where we can have a second one. That'll be November 12th. 12th. It'll be up on the second floor. We are accepting donations of gently used items that can be dropped off on Tuesday or Thursday evening. So if you want to do your fall cleaning, you have some things to donate, it'll go to a good cause, and we certainly appreciate that. School is back in session. One of the things we wanted to do was acknowledge the purpose of this building. So we created a classroom museum in one of the upper classrooms on the second floor. This used to be an artist studio. Looked nowhere near what it does today, and we're so pleased that many of the desks that actually were in this building actually came back to us through residents donating them back to the Historical Society. You know, I can't tell you the number of people when they come into this room, they just say, oh, I had that desk when I was a kid. Last weekend, as I said, the class of 1972 was here. When I brought them in on a tour, they all clamored for a desk. We took some wonderful shots of them being back in school 50 years later. You know, it's important to preserve the history of the community. You know, 6 years ago, we started out just, you know, trying to renovate this building, trying to get support from the community, and, you know, we've been successful in doing that. Then we wanted to establish these museums to honor the coal miners, to honor the students who'd been in this building, to honor the police, the fire departments, and of course, our veterans. You know, it continues to really become an engaging story to tell, to promote, and to have people come in and just relive their youth, their childhood here in Bethel Park. You know, our collection of memorabilia goes beyond what we thought we would ever be able to acquire. Items, deeds from Bethel Park dating back to the late 1700s, you know, records from the magistrate in the early 1900s, yearbooks, other ephemera. It's incredible what people have in their attics, don't know what to do with. Please donate to the Historical Society. Help preserve the history of our community. And personally, I just want to thank everybody who's ever played a part in preserving this building. You know, we consistently talk about what we've been able to achieve in the past 6 years, but you know, there are others before us that were able to preserve the building in their own way, not to the extent that we've been able to do, but every little bit helped to ensure that this 1905, 1917 historically landmark building has survived and will continue to do so for the next 100+ years. So with that being said, thank you so much for taking this tour with me, and we look forward to seeing you at one of our events or just to take a tour. Thank you.